People tend to have this common misconception that just because they're eating a plant-based or vegan diet, they are going to become healthier or magically lose weight, but this is not the case. What you want to be focusing on is a whole food plant-based diet. So I'm going to be getting more into that later in the video. But first I'm going to be talking about 4 different things that can trip you up on a plant-based diet. These strategies will help you to refrain from making some very common mistakes that people make when they attempt to adopt a plant-based diet for health reasons or to help them lose weight. For those of you who haven't seen my videos, I'm Carly. I'm a plant-based nutritionist. I love making videos on all things vegan and plant-based to help people with this transition because it's such an important decision to make for yourself and for your family. So I want to make sure to give you as many tools as possible. The first strategy that it's simple, but it's not easy. It's to remove all of the oil, all of the added oils out of your diet. Now, oil has become one of the most insidious substances in the Western diet. It's found in anything from salad dressing to pasta sauce to chips and junk foods and breakfast cereals, granola. So you have to be really careful and get pretty savvy with your label reading. It should be listed pretty obviously on the nutrition facts. I know this is a challenging one, but the good news is that it's adaptive. So over time, you will acquire less and less and less of a taste for these fatty foods. Fat takes the longest to adapt to when you start to reduce the amount that you're taking in. Initially, if you want to cut back slowly, that's totally up to you, but it will obviously work faster and more efficiently if you just remove it completely and then start from scratch. 30 days to 3 months is the typical amount of time it will take you to adjust. More people tend to average towards that 3-month range. And oil has nothing in it. It's completely devoid of nutrients. They take, let's say the olive, for instance, because everybody thinks olive oil is some kind of health food. You remove everything that's beneficial to human health. The fiber, the phytonutrients, the antioxidants, most of the vitamins and minerals. What's left is the fat. That's literally all you're consuming. So 1 tablespoon of oil tends to be around 120 calories. That's a lot. They've also done a lot of interesting studies that show that if you ingest a tablespoon of oil, for instance, and you go on to eat a meal, you will eat just as much, if not more food than you would have for similar participants that had not had the tablespoon of oil. Or they reverse the study and have the people that did not have the oil ingest the oil and then see what their intake is, and then vice versa. So it's really interesting how when you take a whole food and you adapt it and basically remove so many of its constituents that it becomes this concentrated substance, your body doesn't know what to do with it. So it tricks it into thinking that it hasn't had as many calories as it does. So you continue to take in food even though if it had been the whole food, you would have eaten less. The second tip is to remove the processed vegan substitutes. I know it's tempting to want to transition from your familiar foods that you ate when you were not eating vegan or plant-based to basically the same diet but just with the vegan substitutions like vegan pizzas and vegan chicken and vegan hot dogs and cakes and cookies, and you can get vegan anything these days. It's kind of helpful, but not at the same time because it's still undermining your health. What was easier for me is that you really need to think about changing your paradigm when it comes to food. It's not about your spaghetti and your hamburgers and all those typical things that you grew up eating. It's about reframing your food pyramid or whatever you want to call it. You look at I hate focusing on macros, but it's how our culture has come to understand these things a little bit easier. So legumes are consistently used on a vegan diet to replace the protein that you would have gotten from meat, but in a much healthier way because you have all those other phytochemicals and antioxidants and fiber and vitamins and minerals that you wouldn't have gotten had you eaten the meat-based alternative. You want to make sure you get some legumes in the majority of your meals, and then the grains are going to be the second biggest area of calories, and your starches, so your potatoes and your rice and such. So once you have those taken care of, then you move on to your veggies and your fruits and your nuts and seeds, getting a little bit of those, a little bit of nuts and seeds, and a lot of fruits and veggies, up to 10 servings per day. So as long as you have that mind frame going into this, as opposed to, what the heck am I gonna put in my meatloaf, or my ribs, or whatever, it's a complete alteration from what you're used to. You have to modify the entire way that you see your meal planning. These vegan substitutes are gross. They are full of saturated fat and highly processed soy products for the most part, lots of tropical plant oils, and those are the ones that tend to be the highest in saturated fat. They try to fool you with this health food aisle in the grocery store or these health food markets, but there's nothing healthy about them. I don't even know if they're healthier than what they're trying to mimic. If you go buy a package of cake batter from the regular section of the grocery store that sells cake batter, and then you compare it to one of these health food versions of cake batter that don't use eggs or don't use, animal products or whatever they're trying to promote, or whatever they're trying to advertise that this is going to be healthier because we took this out of it. It's likely just as bad for you, if not worse. So don't be fooled by all these convenience foods that we have available to us today. Yes, they're advertised very well to vegan and plant-based individuals, but they're not going to promote health in any way, shape, or form. Over time, you will become more comfortable and more confident with your skills and your ability to meal plan and put delicious flavors together. Just trial and error and experiment as much as possible. It's going to take some time, but it's well worth the effort. And then you never look at these health foods the same way again. Let's move on to the next tip. Removing salt. Just like oil, salt is a highly concentrated mineral. Well, not that oil is a mineral, but we need minute amounts of sodium. Basically, the amount of sodium that's found in fresh plant foods, like broccoli, for instance, has a little bit of sodium. That's the amount that our bodies are used to taking in, and that's the amount that we can handle. Our bodies can't even release sodium and salt at the basis that we are taking it in. It's the number one cause of high blood pressure in this country and across the world, really. It's incredibly harmful for you, but not only that, it completely undermines your ability to lose weight. So it stimulates appetite, and it tricks your satiety mechanisms into thinking that you're still hungry when you really, had you not had the salt, just like with the oil I mentioned earlier, you would have eaten less than you would have had you continued with the salt. The good news is that this one's also adaptive, and I believe it takes an average of 30 days to reset your taste for salt, your high preference for salt. So just stick with it. Just give it that 30 days. What's it gonna hurt in the grand scheme of things? That's such a short time frame when it comes to your lifespan. I'm gonna move right along because this video is getting kind of long. The fourth one is to just eat more raw foods. The more you cook or process a food from its whole natural state, the easier you're making it for your body to break it down and absorb it. So the more bioavailable it's becoming. If you continue to eat all cooked versions of what you used to eat, or lots of roasted, boiled, pan-fried, or even turning something as simple as chickpeas into hummus, or peanuts into peanut butter, or making smoothies as opposed to eating the fruit and other components of the smoothie, in their whole versions, you are actually getting a double benefit, because not only is it harder for your body to break those down and, burn more calories through the process. That's basically what I'm getting at. I'm making this more complicated than it is. You are going to burn more calories by eating foods in their whole natural form, because your body has to remove all of the helpful components of those foods from the fiber, from those intact cell walls. So you want to try to eat your fruits and veggies raw, and your nuts and seeds raw. Your legumes and your whole grains should be cooked, but you want to get those in their most intact version. So whole grains, that's a big one in Western societies. It's very difficult to come across whole grains, as sad as that may be. But like the hierarchy of whole intact grains to like the most processed version, it's somewhere along the line of, I always get these screwed up, but it's like whole intact grains, and then steel cut, rolled, shredded, flaked, flour, and then puffed, I believe. So the intact would obviously be the least amount of processing. The puffed grain would be the most amount of processing. And basically what you're doing along that continuum is pulverizing and smashing that grain into an altered form that increases the surface area, so there's more for your body to absorb. But on top of that, you're removing all of the good components, more so down the continuum. So up here, the whole grain, you have all your fiber and your phytonutrients and your vitamins and minerals, and the more levels that you go down that continuum, the more of those healthful benefits you are removing from that food. Those are my 4 tips. I know this is a little lengthy, but I have 10 more on my website at modernnutritiondesigns.com if you want to check out the rest. They are very helpful. They're how I lost about 30 pounds on this diet. I was in the same boat. I was eating all those vegan junk food versions of what I thought I was supposed to be eating, because it's what it was always familiar to me. It's scary when you try a new diet and you have no idea what to eat. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner comes every day, and you have to come up with a new meal 3 times a day and snacks. So I hope this video was helpful, and good luck on your weight loss journey. I wish you the best.